Hello again, viewers, and welcome for another edition of NFL Web TV. I'm your host, Samuel Zito, joined again by John Seaton. And Seatsy, it's been a while. Good to have you back.
Yeah, it has been a while, mate. I've been a very busy boy, but always good to be part of the NFL and good to be back on NFL TV.
Well, can you believe it's already round 11 of the NFL season, round 12 for Division 3, so time is just flying, and more than half the season is already gone, and we're fast approaching finals now.
Look, mate, I remember the first game we covered between Bundoora and West Preston. That all of a sudden was 10, 11 weeks ago. So the season's flying. It's been a great season so far, but let's get straight into it.
Well, one side it's been a great year for is Division 3 side St Mary's. Only won 2 games in season 2010. This year already the 6 wins went down on the weekend to South Morang. Of course, South Morang having lost only the 1 game, which was to St Mary's in the first fixture. But this week St Mary's travels to Heidelberg West. They haven't won a game yet this year. Heidelberg West got close on the weekend, went down by 3 points. Of course, Reservoir kicking the last goal of the game to get that win, so they are improving. But St Mary's been in pretty good form, 6 wins so far this year, and I think even away from home, I reckon they'll get the 4 points this weekend.
Yeah, I think so, mate. Like you said, it is really the feel-good team of Division 3 this year. You spoke about they've only won 2 games last year, and to be 6-3 now and going in against Heidelberg West, I think they should get the bickies, and it's a good story for them.
Well, I guess it's impressive they've won the 6 games already, but as I mentioned, they have beaten South Morang. They've beaten Reservoir when the scores were level at three-quarter time, come away with a 5-goal win. On the weekend, to lose by 14 points to South Morang, got jumped in the first quarter, 4-1, so disappointing turn. But from there, they worked themselves back into the game and just fell short in the end, but some positive signs there. Next on the agenda is Parkside up against Panton Hill, and Parkside barely put a foot wrong this year. They're sitting second on the ladder now. 1 win behind South Morang. They do have a game in hand, however, so between the two of them, they are probably the 2 premier sides of the competition. Panton Hill sitting 5th on the ladder, had an injury-interrupted start to the season, but despite that, they're just outside the top 4. Only Reservoirs above them, and they do have I think the percentages aren't too far apart, so Panton Hill will definitely back themselves coming into this final stretch of the year to push inside the top 4. The loss to Reservoir 2 weeks ago probably doesn't help them, but on the weekend, a really big win over Watsonia, as you would expect. A lot of that was done in the final term, about 8-0, I think it was. But Parkside, on their home turf, have only lost 1 game for the year. I think they're the form side of the comp with South Morang, and I don't think they'll be beaten this weekend.
Yeah, I think so, mate. If the AFL tradition or the trend that we're seeing of clubs coming off the bye or a curse is anything to go by, perhaps it could be the curse of Parkside coming off the bye this week and jumping off against Panton Hill. But like you said, good win to Panton Hill against Watsonia on the weekend, but you think Parkside, the better side for the majority of the season, should win the game.
Well, yeah, it was 7-0, but it is a good point you make, because of course Panton Hill running into form in that last term, getting a big win, and Parkside, you never know, after that break, teams have come back a little bit rusty, so you just don't know what you're going to get there. And in the final game of Division 3, Reservoir plays host to South Morang, and I wrote an article in the Record this week, and I likened them to a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde mentality of Reservoir. You just don't know. 2 weeks ago, you got the best of Reservoir when they won comfortably against Panton Hill, when I know I didn't tip them that game, but they led from start to finish. Nick Georgeski up forward was too good for the Panton Hill defence. But then on the weekend, playing home again against Heidelberg West, and as I mentioned, kicked the last goal of the game to get the win. Probably a team you definitely expect Reservoir to knock over Heidelberg West a lot easier than what happened. So now hosting the number 1 side in the competition in South Morang, who's in some pretty good form. Shane Whitnell back in the park, 3 weeks in a row in the best. I wouldn't have thought the Lions will have any problems with the Mustangs this weekend, despite being away from home.
Look, you spoke about it, and South Morang had their first loss in round 1, and since then, they just haven't looked back. So, start favourites, and like you said, they get Shane Whitnell back, which is a huge inclusion, and I think they'll win comfortable against a club, you said, which is, they're good 1 week, and they're just disappointing the next.
Well, they did record their first consecutive wins of the year in the weekend, Reservoir, but I guess, from word coming out the club, they weren't obviously too happy with the manner of the victory, but at the end of the day, it's all about backing those 4 points, so of course it could have been far worse for the club. We'll jump into Division 2 now. There's a few big games going into Division 2. First up, we'll look at Lalor and Mernda. Of course, Mernda sitting on the bottom of the ladder, Lalor in 2nd spot, but Mernda getting a win 2 weeks ago. Lalor had gone into last week with 2 consecutive losses, got a win on the weekend. Peter Shepherd jumped back off a plane from his honeymoon, and just hours later bobbed up in the forward line, kicked 4 in the first quarter against Fitzroy Stars at Victoria Park, and a fair effort. But you think Lalor on their home paddock against Mernda this week, who's probably now, who's actually now 2 games bottom of the ladder, you'd think the Bloods wouldn't have too many worries this weekend.
This could get very, very messy, Sam. I know you don't like to say that, you want to give every club an opportunity, but yeah, with Sheps back, you'd think Mernda would struggle.
Well, they are getting a few more players back in the park, Mernda, but it is tough now that Thomastown got a win as well last week, so they are now 2 games above them, as I mentioned, so it doesn't make life easy for them, rather. Next we have Hurstbridge taking on Lower Plenty, and Hurstbridge has run into a bit of a form slump after a good win against Fitzroy Stars, going into that Queen's birthday break, or coming back from it on the long weekend. Actually, it was on the Sunday before. They got a good win, 3 goals down at 3/4 time. Massive comeback there. They would have looked at the fixture after the break and saw they've got Mernda and Thomastown in the next 2 games. Would have thought that's 2 wins they can definitely claim, but have come away with no points from that. So, of course, disappointing against Mernda a fortnight ago, and on the weekend trailed all day against Thomastown. 9 points was the final margin, but the Bridges were down all day, and Lower Plenty just continuing on. Knocked over Diamond Creek on the weekend, who was a 3rd-ranked side going into the game. The Barton boys were on fire again, named 1st and 2nd best on ground, and you wouldn't have thought that Lower Plenty will have too many problems with Hurstbridge this weekend. Yeah,
look, I think so, mate. Yeah, you look at it, they probably should have beat or been more competitive against Thomastown, and then had they won as well, they could be, say, 2 games outside the top 4, which would have been a chance. Now you just think that their finals chances are gone.
And you can't disagree with that. I mean, you see the teams in the top 4 now, 3 games clear of those outside, and you think it's, that the way it's running at the moment is what will happen come finals time. Epping and Fitzroy Stars is the NFL match of the day this weekend. We'll be calling all the action there from Epping Recreation Reserve, so make sure you're tuning into 88.6 Plenty Valley FM on Saturday. From 1 o'clock we have the preview show. 10 past 2 is when we call all the action, but Epping just continuing on that good form. We saw them in round 2, and we mentioned every week how poor they were on that day. Of course, 0-2 going into the Easter break, and since then they've now lost only 1 game, lost to Lower Plenty by 15 points, and continue on their winning way against Mernda last weekend. 101-point winners. Daniel Moore continues his fine form. Aaron Willits kicked another bag, and Adrian Totino just runs off that half-back line through the middle and booted another 3 goals. He's in some fine form, and for the Stars, they'll probably get Andrew Lovett back this week. He was a late exclusion, but for a team that promised a fair bit come the start of the season, they haven't really delivered on that. And with only 3 wins from 10 games, it's hard to see them matching up well against Epping this weekend.
Yeah, look, Fitzroy Stars coming off a disappointing loss to Layla on the weekend. Really did miss Lovett. It was a huge omission, as would any team without the big Andy boy. But look, you'd think Epping with their fine form should continue, and you just hope that Fitzroy Stars can put up a bit of a showing.
Well, yeah, hopefully, I mean, for us, we're calling the game, for everyone listening in, is a really close one. But having said that, despite a heavy loss on the weekend, they really did push Diamond Creek the week prior, and they lost by 20 points. And earlier this year as well, they led by 4 goals against Laylaw in the final term at Laylaw, and as we know, the Bloods kicked the last 7 goals of the game and won that one. So they have been able to push some of these better sides. So hopefully this weekend they can put in an improved performance on what they showed last week, and if not beat the Blues, at least get close and hope for a tight contest. And the final game of Division 2 is Diamond Creek up against Thomastown. And I reckon a couple of weeks ago, Diamond Creek would have looked at this one and thought, there we go, probably a certain win. But in the last month, Thomastown have gone from being second bottom of the ladder without a win to having won 3 of the past 4. In their one loss, they got done by 10 goals against Lower Plenty. We're only down by a point at half time, so they are putting in some improved showings. And I think Diamond Creek on their home paddock, having lost last week, will bounce back and win this one. But it is a danger game because the Thomastown Bears are starting to find a bit of form in the latter half of this season.
Yeah, spot on, mate. You'd expect Diamond Creek to win, but like you said, form is just such a massive thing for football. You see it in AFL, you see it in Division 1, you see it through all divisions in footy. And just don't write off Thomastown, because when you're up and about, when you've got a bit of confidence, anything's possible. And I think it will be a lot closer than people think, but I still think Diamond Creek should win the game.
I agree with you there, but it's looming as a good week for Division 2 and Division 3 footy, so make sure you get down to your local ground on the weekend. Keep watching below, we'll have the Division 1 preview as well, so don't go away. We'll see you again soon.